maybe. Sorry about that if you missed me for a second. Okay, so I was just saying Pennsylvania 10, we were going to take a pickup there probably. And then if we were to go over to, see, what I'm going to show you is this is the Salvador Cristobal forecast. A few seats over on this left side of the screen here that are likely Democratic pickups. We've got Alabama 2, California 13, 27, Iowa 1, Nebraska 2, which is looking good, New York 4, which is looking good, New York 19 and 22, and then Oregon 5. So even if we won like 5 of those, 9, we would take the House back, okay? So the reality is that I think that we're likely to still take the House, but also, we're going to lose the Senate for sure almost. And the presidency, I would say, is like 90-10 going to Trump. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. And then the second thing I would say, let me just see if people are still able to see this stream. I'm very concerned about the stability of the stream. Okay. Sorry, I had to start a second stream for those who were watching the first one there, whatever. Okay, so like I said, I think if we win just a few of these red colored seats in this Democratic leaning districts, we will still take the House. We only need 5. We're looking good in Alabama 2. California ones are going to take forever to get called. Marion Miller Meeks in Iowa 1 looks quite doable. Let's take a look at that one actually. Here's kcci.com. We'll see how we're doing on this. And then they called it for Feenstra, they called it for Hinson. Those are the 2 least competitive districts. It looks like none has taken a lead indeed in this Iowa 3 district, which is what I expected. And then it looks like the Democrats has taken the lead down in District 1 with 82% reporting. I expect the Democrat to win Iowa 1, and I expect none to hold on in Iowa 3. But even so, I think that will lead to a overall thin Democratic margin in the U.S. House of Representatives, which is important because when Trump probably, if he wins, it's important to have a Democratic House to check his dictatorial powers, so to speak. He's the type of person that would do bad things, and the House being Democratic at least will cushion that blow. Okay, so let me just go back to, where did I put it? I have so many tabs open, guys. Okay. So, yeah. Let me just kind of ignore the election for a second, because I'm pretty sure I'm right about all this. Republican will win the Senate 52 to 48 or so. Democrats will take the House narrowly. Trump will win the presidency narrowly, but still. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that we're going to deal with another 4 years of bullshit. And frankly, Donald Trump may not make it the 4 years. He will absolutely 100% be able to get out of his criminal trouble. He will not be subject to criminal prosecution any further. Just don't even think about it. Just don't even, waste energy on that one. What else will he do? He will appoint at least 2 Supreme Court justices. Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas will retire, and so we'll have a 6-3 right-wing majority on the Supreme Court for quite a few years, I'm sorry to say. Even John Roberts, the Chief Justice, may retire as well. So that's not good. The Supreme Court is going to be a right-wing institution for a generation, probably. What else will happen? Trump will try, he'll try to dismantle the administrative state. So he'll start taking away, environmental regulations. He'll try to kick people off of Obamacare and undo Obamacare as much as he can. He'll make it easier for industry to pollute, or he'll try to relax labor standards. He'll do all these things. He'll probably fire Lena Khan at the FTC and make it easier for companies to become monopolies. He'll probably deregulate the federal election, or, appoint right-wing people to the Federal Election Commission, thereby making it easier for corporations to donate to candidates and so forth and so on. Long story short, it's going to be horrible. But here's the thing, guys. We already knew our country was like this, didn't we? I mean, honestly, if you weren't ready for Trump to potentially win, then you were not paying attention in 2016. I mean, the choice was equally clear both years. In 2016, I mean, look, not everybody loved Hillary Clinton, but rationally speaking, she was not a fascist. Donald Trump was. So they voted for the fascist. We got 4 years of fascism, and we barely escaped it. Like, Joe Biden barely won. Do you remember the election in 2020, by the way? I know that up here it says 306 to 232, but do you know the three states that Joe Biden won in Pennsylvania, where he won by about 70, or about 70,000 votes. Michigan, he won by about 150,000 votes. Wisconsin, he only won by 20,000, 20,000 votes or so. Do you realize that if he had, and like Georgia, so okay, let's take the three closest states, because he had to win 3 of those 5: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona. If you take Arizona, he only won by about 11,000 there. He only won by about 11, almost 12,000 in Georgia, and in Wisconsin he won by about 20,000. So if you add those 3 numbers together, you get about 44,000 votes. That's how much Joe Biden won the presidency by. It is not crazy that Harris is going to lose by a similar margin, probably. All right, that is just the way. That's how our country is. Our country is like proto-fascist. We're like on the verge of having people making it illegal to get gay married and like taking away abortion and all this stuff that they want to do. That is what half the country wants to do. And you know why? They don't even care about some of those issues. You know why they want to do that? Because they like Donald Trump's like economic agenda. It's like how Mussolini made the trains run on time, like they like the trains running on time, so they don't care that he's murdering his political opponents and blah blah blah. I mean, I'm trying to be a little bit flippant here, but obviously I literally think Trump is a fascist. I literally think he's the type of guy that would lead our country away from democracy into a system of authoritarian, violence-oriented governance that's just dreadful. And so I'm very upset and scared about that, yes. But we have been here. We have been in this place for a while. And whereas I hoped we had found a way to like narrowly avoid it this time, we just didn't. We missed it. So first thing I would say is just get down in the dumps. Get used to this feeling, because it's like this is the country you live in, okay? You don't live in a real like liberal democracy. You just don't. You live in a country where half the population will vote to take away your rights just because they want milk to be 30 cents cheaper, even though it won't even be 30 cents cheaper because Trump had nothing to do with the price of milk. That is the country you live in. You live in a country where people care more about the sort of abstract right to own a machine gun than children not dying in school. You live in a country where if women die in sepsis in a parking lot at a hospital waiting to become medically in need of an abortion, that's okay because at least we're protecting stem cells. You live in a country where like the 3 trans people in Utah trying to play sports is a bigger problem than like children starving in places where they don't have enough food. You live in a country where people living on the coast of Louisiana and Florida whose houses are literally being swallowed up by water don't believe in climate change because a Democrat said it. That's the country you live in. In some ways, you need to accept that. You just need to be real about that. You don't live in Elysium or okay, let's avoid supernatural places. Okay, you don't live in Sweden. You don't live in Berlin, Germany. You don't even live in London, England. You live in the goddamn United States of America. We are a right-wing conservative, proto-fascist country, and we have the most military power in the world by a long shot. And it sucks. We need to change this country dramatically, but right now, we just didn't. We'll get it next time. We probably will, but in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of damage. There really will. And a lot of people are probably going to get hurt. And the best thing you can do now is steel yourself for this next 4 years. I mean, just maybe Think more about your local concerns and needs. Don't worry so much. I mean, Trump's gonna fuck up. He's gonna get unpopular almost immediately. I wish the people would understand that right now rather than wait 6 months for him to drop to 32% approval rating. Wish he had that now, but so be it. All right, I got a couple questions here. Let me switch gears and just answer a couple questions. First of all, let's go with first question was, what are we thinking about the House? Yeah, I think the House is probably going to go slightly Democrat. Like I said, Senate probably slightly Republican. Next question is there anything we can learn from this to stop it from happening again? Yes, absolutely, 1,000,000%. I don't want to be like, oh, I told you so, but I've been saying this. I've been talking about this for so long, and I got a lot of hate. I had some people block me. They're probably not listening right now, but that's fine. Because I was like talking about how maybe it's a bad idea to have the like Liz Cheney, who believes life begins at conception and whose dad like killed, that is to say, was the engineer of the Iraq War, which killed about 500,000 innocent civilians in Iraq. Maybe it's a bad idea to have him as the sort of poster child of the Democratic Party, as your little pundit going around trying to win these independent voters who clearly didn't turn out for you. Maybe it's a bad idea to chase 0.1% of the sort of suburban, like former Republican vote, like the Nikki Haley disaffected Republican, like Tim Miller, Bulwark, Lincoln Project, former Republican assholes who think that if the Democratic Party just got a little bit more moderate, maybe they'd win more, and so we'll be like this sort of right-wing party. No. Here's how we could have won, and I apologize for being a little bit self-righteous here. Maybe, just maybe, instead of going after the 0.1% of disaffected Republicans, we should have gone after our base. Crazy idea, huh? Maybe instead of going after, like, the fucking suburbs that clearly didn't work out, let's look here. When we go back to Philadelphia County, I'm just going to obsess about this county all night. This is like the thing that you can like learn the most about from this election. Okay? Maybe we should have been trying to crank up turnout in Philadelphia County. Okay? That seems obvious to me, and I don't want to paint myself as any sort of political genius over here. But if we could have gotten 50,000 more votes there instead of the 2,000 votes we got out in like suburban, like Pittsburgh, obviously we'd be in a lot better shape. Now, what does that look like in practice? Well, it means maybe talking about a progressive populist agenda. Maybe it means not like focusing on college people. I'm an elitist myself. Okay, I'll admit that. I'm a lawyer. I'm a very elite person in the sense of how people talk about that word. But I'm not who wins elections. You should never like base your shit towards me. You should base it like on like some lady in rural or like whatever, like maybe inner city Pittsburgh, or yeah, I mean the rural areas could benefit from this too, but just like maybe somebody who wants a minimum wage increase, or maybe somebody who is sick of us spending money on supplying Israel with weapons. I mean, that's an issue in Michigan. I'll talk about that in a minute. Or maybe we should talk about like, you know, Trump is out here talking about like no tax on tips. Let's reduce the price of gas. Let's reduce the price of eggs. Absolutely, we should be doing that. And yes, the fucking former Republican, like, right-wing, Milton Friedman economic people who have like temporarily aligned themselves with us to fight against Trump are going to complain about, oh, you're doing price controls. Oh, you're doing like central planning of the economy. That's Marxist, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? It's also really fucking popular. If you look at the polling on price control, so to speak, you know, and I don't want to be like, I wouldn't use that phrase necessarily, but the polling on price controls was really high. It was way higher than January 6th. It was way higher than any sort of like policy related to Ukraine or related to any sort of like issue related to taxes or whatever. Like these little like pocketbook issues, these things that people like care about. Like if the average person who doesn't pay attention to elections most of the time, they go home at the end of the day and yeah, eggs cost more. And they think it's the government's fault, and to some extent it is. But what the Democrats need to do, regardless of who's, like, whether it's the president or the House or whatever, they need to have a policy that says, under no circumstances are we going to make it to election day and have eggs be that price. They need to either do some sort of policy to address the cost of goods, maybe by increasing supply, maybe by regulating, corporate practice, whatever, or they need to just do something that's, designed to supplement people's income or something. They definitely need to increase the minimum wage. They definitely need to work on getting healthcare to more people. They definitely need to do these populist agenda things that are very popular. So that's what I would say the Democrats need to do, is just do obviously popular things and stop doing unpopular things. I would also say that in the state of Michigan, which we'll pull up right now, it probably didn't help that our elected Democrats, almost all of them, especially the current president, Joe Biden, was abetting a genocide of Arabs in the Middle East. And why? Because he's a Zionist. He believes that one ethnicity has a uniquely strong claim to the land of Gaza and Greater Israel than another ethnicity. That is a silly and outrageous, and frankly, it's a proposition that betrays the values of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is supposed to be not racist. It's supposed to be for peace, not war. And yet we had Joe Biden leading the charge, but many other Democrats joining him, supporting a racist war in Gaza and killing tens of thousands of children. How do you think the Arab American community in Michigan is going to respond to that? Do you honestly think we would have Arab Americans that voted for Biden by a margin of 70 to 30 in 2020? Do you honestly think they're going to come out in the same numbers? Look at this. I mean, Wayne County is still way not in yet, but I saw a tweet. Let me see if I can find it. There was a precinct in Wayne County. I saw a tweet about it. I mean, I can't verify this, but I trust this Twitter account implicitly. And basically, the tweet said, in one of the Dearborn. Here we go. Okay, this is what we want to talk about. Okay, this is Dearborn, Michigan. This is the most Arab American city in the country, and by the way, home to quite a big chunk of Michigan's 300,000 Arab American voters. All right, now of that group, as you can see, this is just a very early sample of the Dearborn population. We've got about 27,000 votes recorded here, 28,000, whatever. And as you can see, this is an outrageous percentage. And I say outrageous not because I judge them, the Arab Americans, for not voting for the party that's literally responsible for giving Israel 2,000-pound bombs to murder children with. No, I don't judge them for that. How could I? Their families, some of their families are being murdered en masse right now by Joe Biden. And I hate to put it so bluntly, because I know some Democrats are out here like, I love Joe Biden, he did the right thing, blah, blah. He is giving Israel money and weapons to mass murder Arab children in Gaza right now. And you know what? The polls, even non-Arab American voters believe this. The polls show that the vast majority, the majority of Americans oppose giving Israel more arms. The vast majority of Democrats oppose that. And certainly when you see numbers like this is early, so I don't want to make a huge judgment here, but my God, if this holds up, if Harris wins only, what is this going to be, 32% of the Arab vote against Joe Biden's 70%, that means Harris is going to lose a net 80,000 votes in Michigan just from Arab American voters alone. And if that's the case, I mean, Biden only won Michigan, again, by about 150,000 votes or so. If she loses that massive amount of Arab American voters, you couple that with young voters who hate the policy in Gaza, and you couple that with people of color who are also very concerned about American racist colonialism, yeah, we're probably going to lose Michigan, I'm sorry to say. And, if you want to blame the left for flaking, go ahead. I blame maybe the party for abandoning its values against racism and war. If you're going to have a racist war, go be a Republican. That's what they do. Why are we doing that? We're doing that. And I'm sorry that we're getting punished for it by the Arab American communities who have lost their families overseas. But that's what the consequence of bad policy is. If we had a policy that said, you know, we're not going to give money to starving, people who are, food insecure. If we just got rid of SNAP benefits all of a sudden, would we not expect SNAP recipients to like not vote in the same numbers for us anymore? That's just normal politics. And maybe you can make an argument, well, it shouldn't be about, catering to identities or communities or whatever. But honestly, if you look at the history of all politics throughout all time, that's what all politics is. I'm sick of this complaint about identity politics. All politics is identity politics. I mean, that's how you win elections. You get a faction of more than half of the various sub-factions in your community. It's literally like all politics is defined by various identities. It's silly to think otherwise. So maybe we can get over complaining about identity politics too, and maybe we can learn from that. To those who are still watching, God bless you. I'm getting bitter and mad now, but let me go back to like being productive. Okay, so how are we going to be productive? I say focus on local. Focus on your state. Focus on your city. Work with people to like figure out ways around Donald Trump's tyranny for a little while. I mean, let me tell you this. If you have money and you want to move out of the country, I mean, I guess I can't blame you. But most people don't. Most people are not in a position to move out of the United States of America to flee Donald Trump. And in some ways, I think it's cowardly to do so. I say we stay here. We work on talking to people. We work on fighting for the next battle. We prepare ourselves for the next election. We have to win this back. And I hate the fact, and let me talk about one other thing just real quick. I mean, this is such a obvious thing that I didn't even talk about earlier, but on my chart here, as you can see, the presidential and the Senate, all of these PVIs, the political partisan voting index developed by Cook Political Reports, they've developed a system where they rank each state by its partisan lean. Now, overall, the country is about even because the country is about even. But sadly, Democrats cluster up in liberal states like California, New York, etc. And I don't blame them. That those are more fun places to live in most cases. And they have better rights for marginal people. But as you can see, every single presidential swing state is supposed to work out a little bit in the Republican favor, I'm sorry to say. Like, these are the weights that, you can judge by party registration, by former, election outcomes, etc. The Democrats have a history of overperforming relative to the PVI just a little bit to win these national elections, but it's not crazy. It's not irrational to have a Republican win marginally in these states. Same with the Senate. The Senate, every goddamn single Senate seat that was up for election this cycle. By the way, I'm drinking, so you can probably tell. And you should be drinking too. I cannot stress that enough. You should absolutely 1,000,000% be drinking right now. But every goddamn Senate race this cycle, I'm going to exclude West Virginia. I just put that in to note that it was a flip. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 competitive Senate seats. Now, get this. Here's the fun thing. We're probably going to win, I'm guessing that one, that one probably, and maybe that one. We're going to lose this one, and we're going to lose, I'm not sure about that one. This one we might win. We're going to lose that. We did lose that one. We did lose that one. And we did lose that one. And we lost that one. Okay. So, long story short is, of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, let's call it 10 Senate seats that were up, we're going to win 5, and they're all weighted towards Republicans. That means the Democrats are overperforming relative to the handicap that we have. But the point that I'm trying to make is that our electoral system, our map, favors land over people. Why is that? Because the Senate, every single state gets 2 votes. But there's not 2 votes worth of people in every state. Wyoming has 300,000 some people. California, I want to say 27 million, roughly. That means Wyoming, those 150,000 people per vote. California, 14 million people per vote. Not fair. Not fair whatsoever. The Senate is an anti-majoritarian institution. It's terrible. Okay? But the point is, if that's the structure of our democracy, we have to win more than half of a right-wing, like structurally right-wing institution, then yeah, when Democrats like have a normal baseline candidate, we're gonna lose a few seats. And I'm sorry to say that. And then the other thing is the Electoral College itself, 538 electoral votes. Guess where 100 of those votes come from, of the 538? From the anti-majoritarian, conservative-leaning Senate. Now, then you add to the fact that most states are winner-take-all, so when Democrats come, 45, 55 in Texas, we still lose all 40 electoral votes. I mean, the same could be said about California. I mean, the truth is that, in reality, the national popular vote usually mismatches against the Electoral College by about 3% or so. So, in other words, we often win the popular vote and then lose the Electoral College. Long story short is our system has a structural advantage for Republicans and conservatives right now. And the only way to even address that is for the Democratic Party to find a way to win among small, rural states. Can we do that? Maybe. I hope we can. We need to find a way. Because if we don't, we'll never win the Senate again, and thus we'll never have any chance of passing an abortion bill or a tax bill or whatever. We'll never do health care, for sure. So, how are we ever going to do that? Well, it's going to require hard work, political realignment, time, luck, I don't know. Our system is kind of fucked up. It really is. I think the only realistic way we can win back our American democracy is to give the Republicans 4 years to fuck it up, or whatever. And then when they're done fucking it up, we need to tell the American people, hey, they fucked it up. Now you come out and give us a chance. And we gotta rebrand ourselves and be much better. We can't be doing genocide in Palestine. We can't be doing like, oh, Liz Cheney, no problem. We can't be doing like, fracking's okay, or whatever. Like, we're not gonna lose Pennsylvania over the goddamn fracking issue, okay? So, this is just a ridiculous thing. Let's go back to Pennsylvania. I keep going back to Pennsylvania. I hope you don't mind. Where did I put Pennsylvania? I think I got rid of Pennsylvania. So, the reason we're gonna lose Pennsylvania isn't because of goddamn fracking, I guarantee that. The reason we're gonna lose Pennsylvania is because we didn't inspire people who are struggling in places where Democrats have strength, like Philadelphia, to come out and vote for us. That's why we're gonna lose Pennsylvania. We're not gonna lose Pennsylvania because some like moderate in the Philadelphia or Pittsburgh suburb didn't want to vote for us because we're too hard on guns. We're gonna lose Pennsylvania because like some 23-year-old who like smokes marijuana every day isn't gonna come out and vote for the Democrat because like because of some tax policy that Harris is like, oh, we'll have like a small business loan thing. Nobody fucking cares about that. Nobody fucking cares about any sort of like technocratic like thing to invest in the small business or whatever. They care about minimum wage. They care about like, I make $36,000 a year and I can't feed my kid. How do I afford food better? They care about maybe like having some right, like the ability if they got pregnant unexpectedly to handle that. And then, frankly, the Democrats did not fumble the ball on abortion. They fumbled it on other issues. So my point is that the whole idea that some of these states we lost because we didn't moderate enough is silly. We moderated way too much. Think about it this way. Let me go back to my spreadsheet. Let me just kind of do a visual example. Think of these boxes here as the political spectrum, okay? Now let's say this is the right wing, and let's say this is the left wing over here. I know it's backwards, sorry about that. Whatever. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me just, for simple math, move this over 1. Okay, so we got 10 boxes, okay? Now, obviously, to win the election, you need to win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe into the sixth box, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and into the sixth box. How do you win those boxes? Okay, let's go with the Republican angle here. How do the Republicans win? Well, they need to get all their boxes checked. Now, how do they get all their boxes checked? Well, you can focus on this box for sure. This is the sixth box over here. Or you can focus on like the third and fourth boxes. Because the thing is, if the Republicans were to focus on the sixth box, they would lose energy over on their flank. Okay? Same with the Democrats. They would need to focus on these boxes, these six boxes, to win a national majority. Now, if they focus on this box too much, they lose energy over here. So where do you actually need to focus? It turns out, statistically, if you look at the presidents who have won, they focus on the middle of their coalition. Not on the far left, not on the middle, but right in the relative middle. So, in other words, not in the middle of the overall political spectrum, they focus on the middle of their coalition. They appeal to both the moderates and the partisans. It is so obvious to me, but maybe not everybody agrees. And that is how you win elections. You need to appeal to both the base and the partisans on the edges. You cannot simply appeal to I'm sorry, I said you need to appeal to both the base and the moderates. You cannot appeal only to the moderates. And that, I feel like, was the main strategic mistake of Kamala Harris. And frankly, it wasn't even her. She and Tim Walz were doing great early on. They had a pretty sizable lead early on. What happened was Jen O'Malley Dillon, the campaign manager, got in there and it's like, we got to go all Biden and we got to go all focus on the moderate suburban, housewives that are going to come out in droves. And you know what? They didn't. They didn't. We should never have done that strategy. It was a bad move, and that's why we lost. Or we're probably going to lose. Anyway, I hope this was helpful to everybody. If anybody has any questions or thoughts or needs support, I'm here for you. We've been through it before. My advice, have less faith in America. It sucks. I don't want to say America sucks. America has potential, but the people right now, they suck. They really do. They voted for a fascist tonight, and that's probably what's going to happen. Let me take one more look here. Yeah, 75% in. We're only up by 350,000. Let's see, let me do some quick math. Let's see, that's about, we might get another 80,000 if we get 80% of 80,000, 64,000 against 3,600. Which means we net 28,000. That's not nearly enough. Yeah, we're not going to win. We are going to lose Pennsylvania for sure. Anyway, just have less faith in America. You'll be fine. We will get through it. I promise. The thing is, I'd like to say that we'll get through it without anybody getting hurt, and that's just not. I can't say that. Here's the folks who are going to get hurt are the most marginalized in our society, obviously. People of color, people who, certainly immigrants, they're going to get, that's going to happen. I hate to tell you that, but they're going to get mass deported. Trans folks are going to have a tough time. Gay folks, I think, are going to get pinched as well. I hate to say that. You'd think we've made it far enough, but no. Women are obviously going to be subjected to, I don't want to say Handmaid's Tale level treatment, but we're certainly going to not have abortion in most of the country. Or not most, but maybe half the country. We're certainly going to be, the worst thing that I think is going to happen is he's going to appoint 2 to 3 more justices and lock in a 6-3 right-wing Supreme Court for the next however many years. 30, 20, 25 years, whatever. I'm not sure what to expect, but what you need to do at a time like this is just don't think of America as this savior for your life. You gotta save your own life. You gotta develop a tight, supportive community locally. You gotta rely on your friends, your family, people who love you. If the federal government comes in and says, we're not gonna protect abortion rights, and your state doesn't either, then we're gonna have to work with blue states to create networks of support that allow women or people who can give birth to go to those states and have their abortion procedures there. If your state doesn't allow for gender affirming care, we're going to have to work with states that do to get folks out of states that don't, and either temporarily or permanently, but one way or the other, we're going to have to make those corridors happen. If your state doesn't allow, doesn't have any sort of like healthcare, or like doesn't do Medicaid support for Obamacare, you know, that sort of stuff, you know, we're going to have to, I mean, I don't know about that one. That one's tough. We may just have to live in a society where everybody goes bankrupt for medical bills for a while until Trump gets out. Certainly, anybody with student loans, like I have a shit ton of student loans, and guess what? You know what tonight means for me? I'm not going to get out of my student loans for another 4 years. I was looking forward to that, but now I will not. I will not get my student loans forgiven because Donald Trump is going to be president, and he's going to institute a policy of not reversing he's going to just get rid of public student loan forgiveness, basically. And he's certainly not going to forgive anybody's student loans based on fraud or based on improper management of the student loans like Biden was starting to try to do. Probably, I worry about things like foreign policy. I mean, Trump's going to just go apeshit on Israel. He's going to let Israel basically take over Palestine. It's going to be probably the worst genocide of this century. I mean, it already basically is, but it's going to be even worse. He's going to let Israel annex the West Bank, probably. He's certainly going to let Israel annex most of Gaza. He's going to get rid of any support for Ukraine, and Ukraine is going to basically be in a really shitty position relative to Russia. They're going to have to take a shitty peace deal that's going to cede most of eastern Ukraine to Russia. He's probably going to institute, like I said, draconian immigration policy, meaning anybody who's not here legally. I mean, if you got a green card, you'd probably be okay, but I wouldn't be confident if you got TPS, temporary protected status. Certainly wouldn't be competent if you don't have a green card yet. He's going to crack down on asylum seekers. He's going to crack down on people who are here seeking redress. That's going to be a tough one for a lot of folks. He's probably going to institute a series of measures designed to make it harder to vote and harder to, register other people to vote, all these things that we do in activism, spaces. He's probably going to cut funding to every program that's good and increase funding to every program that's bad. So, for example, he'll cut education funding and funding for the Environmental Protection Agency. He'll probably, and by the way, he'll have help from Congress for some of this, but not all of it. But I tell you what's not going to be the case, unlike last time. This time, the courts will probably go along with it, because we've done some good to correct some lower courts, but the Supreme Court is just fucking goddamn right-wing rubber stamping. They're not going to stop them. There's a case less than a year ago where they gave him immunity for criminal acts committed while president. I mean, it's not going to be good. I don't think he's going to get away with criminally charging United States citizens because they're his enemy, for example. But I think he'll try some shenanigans at the Justice Department. I certainly think he'll investigate people who had investigated him. I think Jack Smith is going to be under a microscope. I think Preet Bharara, I think, what's the New York guy, the New York prosecutor's name, is going to be under a microscope. He's going to appoint terrible judges. I mean, it's just going to be terrible. So, look, all that's going to happen. You can't do anything about it. I certainly encourage anybody to do any resistance work they can, but at the end of the day, to save yourself politically and mentally, just focus on your family, focus on your supporters, focus on your people that are around you. Don't worry so much about the national disaster. You know what? For how many years did our country have slavery? We had slavery from 1776 until, 1864 or so? I mean, that was How hard do you think that was for people who were enslaved? Okay, our country had mass murdered and relocated and ethnically cleansed Native Americans for 150 some odd years, and we're still reaping the legacy of that policy. That was not easy to live with for Native. Obviously, under as a Native American, it wouldn't be easy to live with. We had policies that made it. I mean, women couldn't own property, vote, or really have a say in life whatsoever until 100 years ago. All right, gay people. It was illegal to be gay until 2004, roughly, in many places, and frankly, in most places until 1970, and in several places, in 13 states, I think, still until Lawrence versus Texas, and I think it was 2003. So the point is, our country's gone through some shit. We've had bad times before. It's gonna be a bad time, but we're gonna get it back because you know why? We've had a taste of the good times. Young people hate this. And sadly, they didn't hate it enough to go out and vote in big enough numbers. But you know what? Old people let them down. Honestly, you can't blame an 18-year-old for not going to vote because Kamala Harris did a policy about allowing old people to not spend down their assets before they qualify for Medicaid to care for their nursing home. Young people don't know about that. They don't give a shit about that. They can't. How are they going to pay attention to that? Which is a good policy, by the way. Let me be clear. How are they going to pay attention to Medicaid policy? And then you're doing the war in Gaza. You're fucking around with student loans so much. You're not making life easier for young people. Look, I wish young people voted more, but they didn't. So I wouldn't blame them. I'd blame old people for letting them down. Anyway, I'm gonna get off of here. Like I said, if you have any questions or thoughts or comments, please leave them. My recommendation, again, leave you with this thought: rely on your friends, rely on your family, rely on people around you. Drink tonight for sure. Drink a lot. Whatever. We'll get through this. It really sucks. But, I mean, it's not surprising. It's honestly not surprising. And we did it before. We literally did this before. And we're going to do it again. And one day, maybe 10 years from now, we'll look back and be like, hey, do you remember that time when Trump won a second term and then died 6 months into his term and then fucking J.D. Vance became president? And then after that, he got impeached by the House because he, I don't know, killed somebody. I mean, whatever. This is going to be a funny story, but it's going to suck in the meantime. So just get through it. Rely on your people. Drink tonight. Sorry about the bad news. And it's possible we can still pull out a squeaker, but I just doubt it. And you should be prepared for that.